I think, folks, we're ready to start. Jamie. I will begin with the Chamber's land acknowledgement. The London Chamber of Commerce recognizes that the area in which we gather, work, and live is part of the traditional territory of the Lunapawak, Arawandan, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee. We thank the Indigenous people's commitment and relationship with the land and waters for knowing that our ongoing survival is connected to the land. I'd like to acknowledge the communities in Circle, the east, south, west, and northern directions. We acknowledge the local First Nations communities in this area. Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. This region is now home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. This area is also subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to establish peaceful cooperation between communities. We share the responsibility with the land's stewards for ensuring that the dish is never empty and for reestablishing relationships based on peace, trust, and friendship. We also have a commitment to reconciliation as follows. The London Chamber of Commerce is committed to the process of truth and reconciliation. As we begin our journey toward reconciliation, it is essential to understand what that means and how it looks. Reconciliation is more than admitting mistakes, and listening alone is insufficient. It requires action, and action can take many forms, personal and professionally. We acknowledge the historical and ongoing injustices faced by the Indigenous peoples in Canada, and we feel responsible to expose and correct misinformation while also renewing respectful relationships with Indigenous communities through amplifying and uplifting Indigenous voices, stories, knowledge, and community service. Reconciliation requires having a good relationship and then striving to reconcile it. For many Indigenous peoples, there has never been a healthy relationship. While inequalities, injustices, and power imbalances still exist, we must combat this. Through this understanding, we can begin the rebuilding of friendly relations. But most importantly, it requires love, respect, and compassion. Now is the time to question existing beliefs and invest in strong relationships. And I'll just invite everyone to pause and take a moment and consider where you are on your personal journey to reconciliation. Thank you. Now to bring greetings and to introduce our candidates, please welcome the Chair of the London Chamber of Commerce's Government Affairs Committee, Jamie Cruspel. You will note that there are two candidates on stage today. This morning we received a call from Teresa Armstrong informing us that the candidate had symptoms of a flu, and so for better safety, she has elected not to come up. And yesterday we received notification from the Conservative candidate that the candidate would be otherwise unavailable.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out and joining us at the lovely Best Western Lamplighter Inn here in London. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Labatt and Swan Public Affairs. My name is Jamie. I am the chair of the Government Affairs Committee at this Chamber of Commerce, and I have the distinct honor to introduce these amazing two candidates who are up here to share about themselves and answer your questions. Now, about those questions, you'll see on your tables, you've got some pieces of paper and some pens. We would like to hear from you. So if you have a question or two or three, write them out. Now here's the trick though. Write them in such a way that we can read them. Even if it takes you a few minutes. Believe me, if I was writing questions, I would have to somehow get a stencil and trace it out. Anyway, our lovely volunteers will come pick those up. And our candidates, let's meet them today. We have representing the Liberal Party, Ziba Hashmi. And from the Green Party, Zach Ramsey. And now to grill them with the toughest of tough questions, we have Graham Henderson and Kirsten Crows. Enjoy.
Thank you, Jamie. As you know, I'm the CEO of the London Chamber of Commerce, and my partner.
I'm Kirsten Crows, President of Swan Public Affairs.
Together, we're going to be moderating the Q&A portion of today's event. And Kristen?
Yes. Sorry. It's scripted, 1 second.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. But first, we will give each candidate the opportunity to introduce themselves. Candidates, you will have 3 minutes each to give your opening address. Our timer will raise their hand when you have 30 seconds left and signal to the moderators when your time is up.
It was pointed out to me yesterday that for some reason, the only male candidate on stage happened to be sitting immediately to our left, and so always began with the introductions, man speaking first. So today, we're breaking with that coincidence, I might point, and start Ziba. What? It's Ziba, correct? Thank you.
Graham. Yes. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for organizing this. You know, so nice to see everybody here. And thank you for doing this for the 3rd day in a row. So I really applaud the organizers for allowing this opportunity for candidates such as myself to be here. So my name is Ziba Hashmi, and I'm running to be your Liberal Member of Provincial Parliament for London Fanshawe. I'm a wife, I'm a mother of 3 grown children, and I am someone who is passionate about community building, and I have served on non-profit and charitable organizations, and I value an economically strong city that can self-sustain and grow. A little bit about myself. My family arrived here in 1976 from Pakistan, and we faced the challenges that most newcomers face. So we started off with nothing, and we found community. We've been enjoying life here since then on. My father, he was a microbiologist. He served in Montreal at a healthcare facility for 35 years. And my mother was a budgeter, the nurturer, and she kept us grounded. My grandfather, he served in World War II. He was a physician in the Indian Army under the command of the British Empire, and he was with us in the 70s. And if he was alive today, he would be very proud of the work that is taking place, that my team is involved in. And what is really required right now? It's required is good leadership. So Ontario Liberals know that good leadership of our province is crucial right now to get us back on track. The good leadership means having a plan to tackle issues such as housing affordability. We know that's one of the #1 issues on people's minds. And there is a plan to do that. There's a plan to have a program such as building 1.5 million homes in the next 10 years, implementing rent control across Ontario, helping first-time homebuyers with their first purchase. Ontario Liberals also know that good leadership involves a successful economic recovery that gives small businesses most impacted by the pandemic up to 50% off their corporate business taxes for the next 2 years. And this gives them the runway to hire back employees and succeed. Ontario Liberals know good leadership means improving the wages, benefits, and number of sick days for workers across Ontario to help keep them at their jobs by expanding their social safety net. Ontario Liberals also know that good leadership means having a plan to tackle climate change. And that works for Ontarians, such as cutting our carbon pollution in half by 2030, getting 400,000 cars off the road through a Buck a Ride program, transit program, which I'm sure you've all heard, Buck a Ride province-wide, and expanding the number of provincial parks and expanding the green belt from 10% to 30%. Now, London is such a dynamic, beautiful city. It's one of Canada's fastest growing cities. And it's perfectly situated, I must say, 2 hours from the GTA, 2 hours from US. It's large enough to have all the comforts needed, but small enough to have its own culture, its unique characteristics. And it is a growing, diverse community. It has actually many communities of over 140 languages spoken, inclusive of Arabic, Spanish, Mandarin, and Portuguese. The London Economic Development Corporation provides such great information. And, London Fanshawe. London Fanshawe hosts so many big businesses such as 3M Canada, McCormick, Nestle, and more. So when London accomplishes first, such as discovery of insulin by Frederick Banting, and advances in human trials for HIV vaccines, or being designated as Canada's first UNESCO City of Music, it's a proud feeling for all Londoners. It certainly makes me proud as a Londoner. And what we can do to continue to support all this innovative efforts that keeps London creative, bright, and charting is something that we all need to do. And it makes us proud that London is outstanding in its ways. And I look forward to the discussion today. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Zach Ramsey from the Green Party of Ontario. I'm a lifelong Londoner. I was born and raised here over by Hamilton, Highbury area. I started my career as a lifeguard at 16. I've pretty well been working 30 to 40 hour, up to 60-hour work weeks my entire life from then on. I've been a personal trainer. I've been a hockey referee. I've worked in factories. I've worked in retail. I've done over 12 jobs in the last... I always heard the mantra that if you don't have a good job, you should go and find another one. So I would often fall into the trap of leaving for even incremental bonuses, which I've learned from this. But it's given me a really good experience to go around and learn about all of London's businesses in different vectors and different sectors. And with that knowledge, I think there's a lot of options for small and medium businesses to have a chance to grow. Often I'm finding that small and medium businesses are being choked out by these much larger corporate businesses. They're getting a lot of the subsidies, they're getting a lot of the advantages, and they're getting a lot of the supports directed towards them. And this isn't sustainable for a long term. We want to create these 15-minute communities where inside of your neighborhood, you can get anywhere in 15 minutes to all of your appointments, all of your services, to the grocery store, either walking or biking. No need for a car. And to do that, we have to change how we look at businesses. A big box Walmart store is not going to be appropriate in neighboring little neighborhoods. We're going to need tons of little small stores to fill all those gaps in these small neighborhoods, which includes like inclusive zoning rules where we allow these businesses to actually build up in the empty plots in the neighborhoods around London. There are so many empty homes, empty plots that I see as I walk through neighborhoods, and I just think, oh, this would be a great place for a little tiny restaurant. I would love just to stop in here. And giving incentives for small businesses and medium businesses to connect with their communities. For example, if you have any kind of renewable energy at your business and you are bringing in energy, you can give off that excess energy to the community around you. So not only will that add a diversified income to your business, But if I am a customer in that area, I'm more likely to visit the small business, which is helping keeping the cost of my cool house down. It'll be very nice to go down and be like, you're the reason I get cold beer and AC for cheap. Thank you. But I'm very excited for the future. I think London, like Ziba said, it has a lot of potential. It's not extremely as big as Toronto, so it doesn't have such ingrained infrastructure that we can't be changed, but it's also not so small like a small town where we don't have the money and the people power to do that. We have all those things here, and we have the infrastructure ability to change it all. So I'm very excited to learn more about all of your small businesses, all businesses in general, and be able to find ways to support you guys to move from the current economy we have into the green economy that we're hoping to go to. Because if we don't save the planet, we all won't have businesses anyways. So I hope that we can all transition there with as little friction as possible. Because the last thing I want to see is that retrofitting and upgrading your businesses chokes you out with costs. I want those costs to be affordable and manageable, and in fact, make business sense in affordability and profit-wise. I'm going to cut myself short. Thank you, everyone.
We're giving the candidates extra time so that they would have prepared for 3 minutes and then 2-minute questions. So we've given them 5 minutes to introduce themselves and 3 minutes to ask questions. Just to explain, and they're hitting it out of the park so far. So well done. We'll start with the first question, and we'll just sort of rotate back and forth between the two of you. So let's start with Ziba, and let's keep on the theme of climate. Many municipal governments, of course including London, have developed climate action plans, climate emergency plans. What would your party do regarding climate change? And being specific here, do you have any actions you would either support or like to see in London? So what would the government do generally, and what about right here in London? Ziba?
Can't forget the mic. Thank you for that question, Graham. So, I mean, climate change, as Zach was talking about, it's super important. It's important to all of us. It's important to especially our young people. I think for young people, it's their number one concern. As younger people, they have to see, more life ahead of them, and we can see what's happening within our country. We can see the flooding and the fires, and we know that we have to make some changes in our lifestyles, in the way we move forward. There's got to be a paradigm shift, and any kind of efforts, we have to put, I think, more importance onto that. So in terms of what the party is stating, we know there is pollution, and we need to work on getting more clean energy. So there is a plan to cut emissions, carbon emissions, by, I'm sorry, I'm trying to, I don't want to, give any wrong timings or anything like that, but there's a plan to cut that, and this is by I guess, taxing the heaviest polluters that we have in Ontario. And from that revenue, what we can also do is create more jobs, green jobs, clean jobs, 20,000 jobs in the green sector. And this can be, this is something that needs to be further looked at. From my perspective, I need to learn more about it. But this can open so many doors into the potentials out there when we have the right people with the right, with the creativity, with innovation, and we can do so much more. So that's number one. And then also, we know we have a beautiful green belt, that we need to protect from urban sprawl. And also, there's a desire, there's a mandate there to increase that by 30%. So right now, it's at 10%, and we're going to increase that green belt by 30%. And then there's also a plan to build, wrong word, plant more trees. Of course, we know we need more trees. And again, let me just check some other initiatives. and of course, the Bucket Ride program. So it sounds simple enough, but you know what? I'm really appreciating some of the thought processes that has gone into drafting the platform. So it sounds, simple, a Bucket Ride, province-wide, very catchy, but it will take 400,000 cars daily off the road. It will reinvigorate our transit system. You look at our
My
our
apologies,
local
Eva,
system.
but you're over time.
Oh, sorry. Okay, and I said I was succinct. So, I mean, these are changes, and these are great, I think, policy points that
No,
can
Ziba,
impact
we're going to
our
have to
planet.
cut you off there.
Thank you.
All right, your turn, Zach.
Thank you, everyone. I think I'm going to start with a specific one that's near and dear to my heart, and something that I can describe that we can all kind of envision in our mind. Does everyone know Highbury Ave, just south of Hamilton Road, where it goes from regular road on Highbury to the kind of freeway? I forget the exact definition. Nonetheless, there is a great initiative I've seen. It's a bike path which is covered by solar panels, which can either go in the middle or to the side of the road. Essentially, there are barriers on both sides protecting the cyclist, as well as a roof cover protecting them from the elements, which is also going to protect solar energy. So it will not only allow us to add more renewable energy to that road, but it will make it useful for cyclists to be able to get from Hamilton to I live by that road, and it is the worst to have to get down that road without a car. You have to go all the way west. Anyways, adding that in would not only allow us to add some energy to the homes around, but allow the community more cyclable. A second initiative that we want to do is we want to take 40% of all businesses and homes and retrofit them for the environmental future. Now, what that means, it's not all just like water-saving devices. A lot of that is devices that are going to save you money on your energy production. So essentially, ensuring that homes are properly insulated. London, we have tons of old Victorian homes, especially downtown, and a lot of them are going to need to be re-insulated. They need to be protected from the elements, windows, doors, all that's going to need to be done, and that needs to be done at a price-effective fashion. So we want to invest more money into looking at how we can do these things. Right now, they're expensive, but we used to carry around a giant thing we would call a cell phone, and now I got the entire access to the world on this. So it's definitely possible with the investments put in place. And with that, we would want to provide incentives for business investing in these energy efficient and low carbon equipment buildings. And as well, we want to help EVs. So the Green Party wants to create an entire EV production line here in Ontario because we want to buy electric vehicles. Why not buy them directly from our neighbors? Why not buy them close by? Don't have to worry about shipping costs, nothing like that. As well as we want to provide tax incentives to businesses to install charging infrastructures. So there's 3 levels of charging infrastructures. A home one takes about 12 hours to charge. Level 2, about 8 to 10 hours to charge. And level 3, 1 hour charge. Level 3, $50,000 to make, quite expensive, and that's American. Second level is 9,200 Canadian, which is much more affordable and can charge 2 cars simultaneously in 8 to 10 hours, which would be fantastic in these London hotels. Imagine stopping here and being able to charge your vehicle, as well as local businesses, because it would incentivize customers to stay a little bit longer, get that little extra charge. And it's been proven that staying in the business longer.
And Zach, I'm sorry, I'm gonna
We'll have them spend
fair
more.
Is fair. Well, those are some really great answers, both of you. I know you have a lot of information there, and those are great answers. So I'm going to give this next question. It comes from someone who has quite a bit of political experience, and he's also a chamber member. This is from Mike Wallace. Is there a specific project or item that you would like to champion for your riding of London? So I'll start with you, Zach, because we started with Ziba last time.
I used my good one. Dang it, Mike, come on. You know what? Here's another good one. This is a story that I heard which really kind of infuriated me. Let me grab it here. So, does everyone know that the new East Lyons Park and Community Center opened up? The story which infuriated me, I was talking to Ward 2 Councillor Sean Lewis, and at this park, they have a rubber-based ground playground, And there was a London company which offered to do it for free. However, London was unable to because London is only able to purchase from a specific list of vendors. Now, I can see why this rule was made to prevent the city from giving contracts to unfaithful companies. However, it's clearly showing that it's failing small and medium businesses and nonprofits. So, a immediate one that I want to champion here in London Fanshawe would be improve opportunities for small and local businesses and nonprofits to win public contracts through targets and by decreasing the current financial and information barriers. If we are putting out these bids, all the information and speculation shouldn't be for the big businesses that can afford to go out and do these land speculations. That should be done and provided for small and medium businesses so that they too can have an opportunity to bid at these contracts and offer London and their community services that they need.
Nice thinking on your feet.
All right, Ziva, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I think something that is really essential and something that I've been, viewing myself and observing myself, an area, that I think we can all agree on is affordable housing. So I myself, I'm part of a team that operates or manages a meal service for the homeless. So we get to see, the direct impact of people who are just struggling. Amazing people, amazing resiliency. They don't even, nobody complains. Just beautiful smiles that we see every week. But this is a big, big issue, affordable housing. And this would be something that I would be greatly interested in, trying to help people. So of course, as I mentioned, there is the rent control that the Ontario Liberals will be working on. For creating affordable housing, first of all, ensuring that we have the supply, and secondly, we can increase the pace of building, because those are the two foundational pieces. And then also working on a body, provincial body, a Crown Corporation that can look after providing affordable housing, working with partnerships in the nonprofit sector, working with developers, and creating something, that's out of the box, and creating something that can give some hope to first-time home buyers. So that's something I would try my best in terms of whatever is needed, whether it means working with our federal, provincial, and municipal partners. Something like this is going to require collaborative work and a desire and a push to make it happen. Because you know what, we can do better. This shouldn't be the case where people are struggling. We need to do better. We need to step up. We have a growing, province, a growing city, and we need to do things a little bit better. And this is where I would be putting a lot of my energy. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Why don't we stick with the not-for-profit sector? I've got a question here from Paul, our friend from Pillar Not-for-Profit. We're proud to be a sustaining member of Pillar. So thanks for the question. Thanks for all of your partnership, Paul. So the not-for-profit sector, Paul asks, or points out, in Ontario contributes 7.9%, so let's call it 8%, to the GDP of the province. It also employs 844,000 people, let's call it 1 million, and delivers government priorities directly or indirectly into our communities. I can personally attest to that. But it has no home in government, unlike business. To make cross-sector collaboration easy and productive for our communities, in this all-hands-on-deck moment, how would a government you lead include the voice of the not-for-profit sector so that we can together maintain and build this critical social and economic driver through recovery? So it's about supporting the not-for-profit sector, the not-for-profit businesses. And I think it's you. Now, are we exhausting? Because we go back and forth. You end up speaking twice in a row. Are we okay with that? Okay, Ziva, go ahead. I just don't want to exhaust people.
I appreciate the work that nonprofit organizations do. They enhance what's needed in society because we know government can't do it all. And, we need those nonprofit organizations, those charities to help folks. As I was just talking about affordable housing, people in need. And we know, realistically, we can say we're going to try to do this and try to do that. But we do know that we need that extra support through nonprofit organizations and charitable organizations, especially with, for example, people who have to rely on ODSB, OW, they do need that extra support. So it's greatly appreciated, the work that's being done, and Pillar Nonprofit, I just applaud their work, especially with now the more pay equity, the equity-based initiative that I'm seeing, and Mojde Cox, she's certainly an amazing asset to Pillar Nonprofit. So certainly it's a very good question, and there needs to be better partnerships and better collaboration. So as I mentioned with affordable housing, that's going to be something that will be worked upon, partnerships with the nonprofit sector in order to get affordable housing going, and available. So this is something that requires work, and certainly, if I'm elected, I will be working hard to ensure that those partnerships are established and there's a good bond and a good communication and good collaboration.
Non-for-profits are a huge pillar of our society, and I and the Green Party believe that they need to receive the supports and incentives that they have missed out on for so long. Often our economy has been run for a search after profits. But as we've seen, this only just allocates those funds to fewer and fewer hands. And non-for-profit businesses are businesses run based on models of how they're serving their customers. So we'll take housing, for example. A for-profit housing industry marks their success off of how much profit they have. They could sell half the units, but make twice the profit, and that's what they will decide to do. A non-for-profit system bases their success off of the people housed. So they'll gain more income if every single one of those units is in use and satisfied. And there are certain industries where that model just makes perfect sense. Housing is just demonstrably one of them. Social assistance is another one. There are systems where we have to choose what the motivation should be going forward. Is it to make more money, or is it to help more people? There are certain industries where it's all about the money. There are certain industries where it needs to be all about the people. And so I believe the Green Party will work extremely close with non-for-profits. I believe heavily in non-for-profits.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, our next question. 62% of business sectors in Ontario are currently facing labor shortages and job vacancies. How will your party ensure that businesses are able to access the talent they need to fill these jobs? And not to exhaust you, but Zach, you're up.
I'm ready. That's why I cut the last answer short. Sorry, can you repeat this? Sorry.
Of course. 62% of business sectors in Ontario are currently facing labor shortages and job vacancies. How will your party ensure that businesses are able to access the talent they need to fill those jobs?
A direct answer that I think that only the Green Party brings is universal basic income. So, for example, you may be having labor shortages now at your very specific industry. The problem is that a lot of workers are stuck at at less than desirable jobs. We can look at people, not many people that work at Walmart or McDonald's tend to love that job. Giving them universal basic income will allow them to have the income they need to explore what job they're truly passionate about. So not only will you have employees coming to you that aren't just there for the money and just to be able to pay for food and rent, but they're there because they want to be there. They want there because they want to serve you and your customers. And it will give businesses a opportunity to attract these new people. You can, with universal basic income, you'll be able to keep wages the same because people will be already being provided for their basic needs, which will incentivize people to want to. People are driven crazy. We all had COVID. We all sat in our house for a week and 2 weeks, and we all went stir crazy. It was a universal feeling across the market. Universal income is going to be the same thing. Everyone's going to get it. Some people are going to take a week off, and we're all going to go stir crazy, and we're all going to find jobs that we love and that serve us and serve our community. A second one would be a stronger worker organization. Right now, workers are just accepting whatever the absolute minimum is because that's all we really believe that we can get. And I know people that are making minimum wage that have 10, 12, 15, 20 years of experience in their individual field, and they are being rewarded for that. So looking into ways how to reward these workers for their service will help them stay and incentivizing them to work hard. And part of doing this is looking at the profit motive of some businesses. A lot of businesses prioritize their profits over their people, and looking at that model will help keep workers at that place of business.
Great, thank you. Ziba?
Okay. So thank you for that question. I just lost my thought there. So as I was mentioning, the platform that the Ontario Liberals have is very smartly drafted. So in terms of what's required here, so again, I'm going to go back to housing and picking up the pace of building. And then it just goes back to the other labor shortages that we have within our city, with our province. So there is a plan there. There is a plan to support apprenticeship programs, for example, at Fanshawe College, programs where we can produce construction workers, where we can produce even healthcare workers, PSWs, nurses. So support for those types of programs, where we can increase our labor manpower, and this is going to be helpful when it comes to supporting our businesses, because of course, I mean, that is essential. You cannot be planning and trying to sustain a city, in a province, if you don't have that workforce. And also, I don't want to say anything without checking, but there is support for these programs at a financial level in terms of tuition. And also, there's much more expansion as to having pathways for international students as well, for them to be able to contribute in those much needed areas. Perhaps if we need some professions out in rural areas, but there are pathways available to help them with their permanent residency. And so I think these are, again, out-of-the-box solutions. Seeing that there is a shortage, if you want to have a sustainable city, a sustainable province when it comes to the workforce, we do need the manpower. And I will, I think, stop there.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of topics. We've talked about affordable housing. We've talked about climate change, about the labor shortage, all very big issues, and it just seems at times like we're really struggling to meet all of these challenges that we have. One of the biggest ones, which I think everybody is feeling, and it's both for businesses and consumers, is of course inflation, which has now reared its head again. It wasn't totally unexpected, I suppose, but here it is. We're seeing rising prices for consumer goods. We are finding, almost seems like the doubling of the gas prices. So how can the Liberal and Green parties help us grapple with this incredible rise in cost of living? Folks who find that their grocery bills are up by 40%, 50% from just a couple of months ago. So we've got an election coming right in the midst of this very serious crisis. Siva, how do the Liberals want to challenge this one? And then Zach.
Yeah, very good question. And I mean, this is something everybody is challenged with. This is something I'm hearing at the door. Affordability is a huge, huge issue right now, and it's impacting people. It's impacting families, and it's, again, I'm going to refer to the meal program that we provide, and it's sad when people have to resort to cutting down on their meal intake, because that's the only kind of margin room that they have where they can skip a meal or cut down on groceries, unfortunately. But this is a great problem, affordability, and this is something that the Ontario Liberals have in mind. They know this is something that the public is struggling with. And so, again, these are policies that will help a little, put a little bit of money back into the pockets of people. So taking HST off your restaurant meal that is $20 and under. So, I mean, that's projected to save perhaps $250 for a family. And also, what else? I mentioned a buck a ride, and that would be capped at $40 for the month. Again, that's something that would be helping families save a little bit of money for the month. And of course, it also helps our environment. Rent control, I've mentioned that earlier, so that's another way to help families with the affordability issue. And then the initiative on affordable housing, $10 a day childcare. We know, that is essential for working, parents to have that childcare, but affordable childcare. So that's going to be putting money back into people's pockets again. And those are some of the the top most items when it comes to helping folks out. And I just want to reflect back on the whole concept behind the platform that's been put together and the thought process that has gone in. And I'm just seeing a lot of, and I don't want to sound like a very traditional politician here, but I do have a lot of hope in what I'm seeing in the leadership, and there is a desire to do well for Ontarians, and there is a recognition that things have been tough, and and that's what we need. We need leadership that cares, leadership that is trying to fulfill a pledge to make it easier for Ontarians. Thank you.
A thing with inflation that always gets me is that the price of something is the cost to pay the service, to pay for the product itself, and then there's profits. This doesn't apply to many small and medium businesses, as many of you work on small profit margins already. However, larger businesses are continuing to increase their profits and increase the price of their items and they're using inflation as a scapegoat. So they are making more money for their CEOs and top people in their board of directors and their stockholders, while their employees are being underpaid, while the customer has to pay more. Many of these companies need to be looked into, and prices should be discussed. We don't have price fixing anymore, but we have a strategy known as price following. If this hotel increases their rates by $10, the hotel down the road would also be smart to increase their wages by $10. They did not fix the price, but in a series of a month, the prices have gone up with no real purpose. For example, I work at a hotel. I'm not going to say which one for legal reasons. I need a job still, guys. And 35% of hotel profits go to paying off the building, paying off the electricity. That's the wages. 35% go to wages, 15% go to electricity and building, and 50% go to profits. The people that had the luck of buying the building. So that 50% is the amount that we could reduce the cost of the hotel and still break even. But we are continuously looking for more and more profits. People are not satisfied with what they're having at the top, and therefore they're charging us more. These things need to be looked at. Removing HST only removes tax money from the government, which is, for example, the CRA. The CRA goes after tax fraud. Who commits those tax fraud? The rich. And with an underfunded CRA, we can't go after these billionaires. We can even see Pandora's Box, which came out just last year, where we've seen hundreds of Canadian billionaires paying less taxes than school teachers. Ridiculous. So these are the things that we need to look at to reduce inflation, because for some industries, inflation is real. For some industries, inflation is just being used as a scapegoat to charge us, the consumers, more and pay the workers the exact same.
All right, those are some very passionate answers. I like it. We're going to pivot here and go to something that touches a little more locally. It is generally agreed that the province, including London, is facing a housing crisis. What is your view on this issue, and do you have any ideas on how your government would tackle this issue? Do you have any ideas specifically for London? As we know that this is a very obvious problem, what would be the platform solutions, or what solutions do your party have in their platforms that can be presented?
Affordable housing is a very serious problem that the Green Party wants to face. We want to have more non-for-profit housing. We want to get rid of for-profit systems. We all know not all landlords are bad, but we all know the stories of landlords having what we call rent-evictions, where they say that they need to renovate the apartment to evict the tenant legally so that they can increase the rent to meet the market value. And these, there needs to be a rent control put in place, as well as rules and punishments put in place for landlords either doing bad faith evictions or rent evictions. There are instances when a tenant should be evicted, and that should be handled lawfully and properly. It should not just be done by somebody in their own. It should be handled with a governing body to regulate that and ensure that not only that this person is going to have a home, have shelter to go to, but that the person who owns the house is also having an equitable business decision. The second would be to create these affordable housing. So in London alone, we don't have many very large apartment buildings. I would love to see these, because what it does is it compacts the community into neighborhoods and areas, so allowing you to have more services within your neighborhood. If you just have single-family housings, you maybe have 100 family on a street. If you have these more compact, dense housings, you could have 1,000 people on your street. With 1,000 people, you're going to need much more services very close by. You're going to need more people to work. You're going to have more workers to deal with the workforce shortage we're facing. And there's another green initiatives. We want to create 60,000 supportive housing. So often when people think of non-for-profit housing, they get worried because they have fears of the mentally ill and the homeless and the downtrodden. But these supportive housings will make sure that the non-profit housings are safe and secure, because people with mental health conditions, people that are dealing with drug addiction, are able to go to these housings, receive the supports they need, and be brought back as a productive member of society. And as well, we want to make these new houses retrofitted so that we don't have some of the same tenant issues we have now, such as paper-thin walls. If any of you have heard your neighbors arguing in the middle of the night, I'm so sorry. I have felt the pain. And we hope that well, we know that we can do this. It's very possible. Contractors are ready and wanting more work, and we just need to give it to them. We need to find ways to fit it within London. London already has so many empty properties. Just retrofitting them, upgrading them, would add so much more housing to our community.
Thanks, Zach. So I think we have to ensure that homes out there, homes and lands, are not just sitting there for speculators. We have to make sure that whatever we have available is being used, because right now we can't afford to have land and property just sitting there. People need a roof over their heads. People need to have a house to call their home, and that's where we are right now. And so what the Ontario Liberal Party will be doing is to take immediate action to ensure homes are for people who live in them. And so they'll be implementing an empty homes tax, 5% of assessed value on non-Canadian owners and 2% for Canadian owners with vacant residential units in all urban areas. And we'll also work with our federal partners to ban new non-resident ownership in Ontario's housing market for at least the next 4 years. And again, Ontario homes, they're for families, not for speculators. And again, these are properties that are just sitting empty, that are not being utilized. And again, also to some of the points around the different types of housing. Zach talked about mental health, and there's a plan, with the Ontario Liberals as well, to create supportive housing for for people with abilities, for people with mental health issues, and these would be something similar to wraparound services that provide housing and provide the supports as well. And there's a dedicated number allocated in terms of funding towards supportive housing, and that would be something that is required, that is essential for our city, for London Fanshawe. And then again, I think I've explained the concept of having this Crown Corporation, the Ontario Home Builders Corporation, that would be working with nonprofit partnership and developers to ensure we have something in place for first-time home buyers. Thank you.
We heard from you earlier, Ziba. I heard you mention international students, and I know we've got a lot of Fanshawe students in the room today. So I think it would be a mistake if we didn't maybe focus in and drill down a little bit on that. Certainly at the Chamber, we've been working very hard to engage with the various students' councils at the different universities. It's been really important to us to invite them to the table, to have them in the room, and to understand what their issues are, what the issues we're facing, because surprisingly, some of these connect directly to business issues, right? And we talked about this earlier. We have, 62% of the business sectors currently facing labor shortages. Anybody who is working in this room, who is in business in this room, will tell you they are having trouble hiring, just hiring people, right? Many, many reasons for it. We don't need to go into it. It exists. So what are some of the answers? Well, one of the things that we've noticed is that we have this eager, well-equipped workforce. And the question from Paula Perez at Fanshawe is that London is considered as a hub for education. There are thousands of students who graduate each year, and many of them are international. How can your party ensure keeping these valuable students in the community? And just to sort of give you a sense of this, my understanding is that Western is currently around 13% international students, aspirationally going to 17 or 18. I believe Fanshawe sits at around 30%, right, and may go higher. I talked to our friends at Huron University, thinking of going from 30 to 50%. So this is a huge, huge asset for the City of London. And Paula also was raising the issue of diversity and inclusion. This is a class or a group of students who do add enormous diversity to our workforces. So kind of a long-winded intro to the subject, but I just felt that with our guests here today, it was worth really delving into it. And so I'll turn it over, and I forget who's going first. Okay, Ziva, why don't you, okay. Yeah, I know and by the way, I think we've got time for a couple more questions because, you know, we're asking a lot of you today, so.
So again, thank you for that question, and I thank our international students for being in attendance. I think just lovely to see all of you here and to hear this morning a little bit about the programs you're involved in. So, you know, when I think about our international students, I always reflect on the great sacrifices that they're making to be here, because I have so much empathy. I mean, I've got, you know, kids in their 20s, and so when I see our young people, and especially somebody who may be an international student, you know, walking down the street or going to Fanshawe College or going to Western, my heart goes out, because it must be so tough to be away from your family, all on your own, and then just paying that, like, such a high, you know, the tuition fee, and then I don't even know how our international students do it. So, you know, a big shout out to all of you for being here, for being in our beautiful city of London, and being part of the programs here, and just enriching our city with your presence and with your desire to be part of the different programs you're in, and whatever your future holds for you. But the thing is, again, just going back to that, the issue of our labor shortage, and, you know, this is where I give the party credit for, you know, thinking and putting this as a policy platform of providing prospective pathways for international students to become a part of the London community. You know, we have to value whatever the programs that we have, first of all, and whatever our young people and people of all ages, the effort they're putting in to educating themselves and then being beneficial, you know, members of society. So, so I look forward to learning more about that, about those pathways where our international students can be permanent, you know, residents in London and contributing back in the different sectors where we need more labor. So again, thank you for, you know, all the efforts that you're putting in, and everything that you're doing for the sake of you know, sorry, loss of words, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. It's really appreciated what you're going through. Thank you.
Yeah, international student costs are insane. I've gone to 2 programs at Fanshawe, fitness and health, and then business finance. And every time you scroll down the website, you see regular costs and you see international costs, and it blows me out of the water. And that's one thing Green Party wants to do, is lower those tuition costs, which would then lower the international costs. As well, we want to increase training opportunities for by providing incentives to businesses that participate in training and certification programs in job growth areas. So like I said at the very beginning, I've worked in just over a dozen jobs in London, and I've realized that in all a dozen jobs, you don't particularly need a college education. You don't need a university education. I work at a hotel front desk, and you normally need hospitality management to do that. I didn't have it, and over the last 9 months, I've learned everything there is to do about the hotel. If the hotel, instead of having that 2-year program costing international students like $17,000, they could have essentially kind of a program like apprenticeships, where you bring in workers to train them on the job, usually probably a shadow type program, and get them working in those industries. Some of these educational blockades are getting in the way of what could be people in these other workforces. I worked at TD during my business finance co-op, and I used none of my knowledge from business finance co-op. I just made sure the signatures were right and all the numbers were correct, and I did emails. Nothing that needed business finance, but to even apply to that position, you need business finance. Allowing these businesses incentives to add some kind of apprentice-like program to bring in workers at a low cost, allowing them to help with the worker shortfall, but then allowing workers to prove themselves in the job. Like somebody might come into a hotel and they'll be like me, 9 months, good to go. They could come into the hotel and they might not be right for it. And that apprenticeship will give you the time and the clarity to do that. That's a big one for the
I'm sure you
English
didn't
success.
intend to mean to undermine the incredible value of these university and college programs.
I think they deserve better.
Okay.
I think they
Okay.
deserve better.
But just before we go to Kirsten, I did want to point out that there is another little crisis for international students that's very quite specific. And of course, it involves our international students from the Ukraine and actually Kazakhstan and Russia. These students are marooned here. They can't go home. And there is an organization, a couple of them in London, that are working to solve this problem for these students. And I might add that Fanshawe and Western both have created programs. I think they've allowed them to stay in their dorms for free. But they're looking for work. And the London Ukrainian Humanitarian Action Group, London Ukrainian Humanitarian Action, you can find them on Facebook. And I think there's a website if you Google it, but I think businesses can reach out and offer these students something to do, because not only can they not go home, and as you pointed out, Ziba, many of them are here completely alone, right? They do not have money. So how are they going to pay for the next year? So anyway, London Ukrainian Humanitarian Action, I think they're doing great work. I think there's a couple of other organizations, but I'll just put that on folks' radar.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Graham. So this question is going to be a little more about agriculture. So here it is. From 1996 to 2016, Ontario lost 1.5 million acres of farmland, and our province continues to lose 175 acres of productive farmland every day, on average of 5 farms per week. What will your party do to protect farmland in Ontario before its ongoing loss significantly impacts our local food supply chain? So, Zach, we'll start with you.
Feels like if you told me that fact as like a young kid in elementary school or high school, that would I would feel like, who is doing this? Who is actively destroying our farmland? Like, don't we use our farmland to grow our food, to eat and survive, and to sell to other places to make further GDP? I probably wouldn't know about GDP. But a lot of these problems can be solved. We don't need to continue the urban sprawl. We have a lot of area here in London to use. I find the profit is that Ontario and Canada itself has a very safe housing market. We all know that if you buy a house, it's probably, well, Canadians have pretty well been taught that your house is your really big first investment besides a car. And that is going to be used as an asset for you in the future. And so what people are doing are speculators coming from the outside, people buying multiple properties, and essentially raising up the price. And the solution to this becomes we need more supply. But what type of supply? We can add higher density buildings inside the urban area that we already have, not destroy any farmland, or we can add smaller density housings outside of our urban area and destroy farmland. It's a simple solution, as well as we can look at the new highway being proposed, carving right through Ontario farmland. And it wouldn't be dramatically decreasing traffic at all. We could add private trucking lanes so that people moving our goods and services can have their own independent lane so that we can avoid further congestion. Once you destroy farmland, you can't bring it back. It's salting the earth. To bring it back is such an expensive practice. It is best to save it and keep it for as long as we can. We have the means to build up. We've seen it everywhere. We've seen it in Toronto. We've seen it in all big cities. And maybe it's time for London to begin that rise to avoid us falling out. Weight can only be held two ways, tall or wide.
So again, thank you for that question. I was actually researching a little bit into the work our farmers do. I was looking at the amount of work they put in, the amount of revenue they put in, and let me rephrase it. What exactly farmers make with all the effort. It's a 24/7 commitment when you look at the work farmers do, and it's something that's essential. I mean, local produce is something that we value, something we all should be supporting. But when you actually look at the amount of labor and the amount of money farmers put in, they don't actually make a lot, and it's astounding when when you see those numbers, and that's something that I think we need to learn more about. We need to value what our farmers are doing in Ontario, what they're producing, how dependent we are on that, on what they're producing. And I don't think we value that. Most of us, urban folks, we just know, you go to the grocery store and magically everything's there. And we never question where is it coming from, who is working hard to grow those items, the produce. And so first of all, we need more education. We need more awareness to value our farmers. I think that's number one. For anything, it's always the learning process. And then from that comes, more advocacy, more awareness, and then from then on, a change in our habits and our lifestyles, where we're more aware. We're supporting, local goods, and we can hence advocate for our farmers. And so, as Zach was also mentioning, urban sprawl, it's something that we have to have a balance with. So we know, we have a growing population, we need homes, but at the same time, we need to know what our limitations are, and this is where, I require more learning too, in terms of zoning, in terms of, I'm aware of our green belt, but in terms of farmland all over Ontario, what does that require? How much protection do they have against developers and urban sprawl creeping up onto farming areas? And I will admit that's where I have to do more work. But again, just going back, we shouldn't be losing as many farms as we have been losing currently, and that's something we need to work further on to protect our farmers.
Ziba, Zach, thank you so much. I think we have really worked pretty hard this morning. I got to tell you, like yesterday there were 5 candidates, and so everybody had a nice long pause to gather their thoughts. And you've been tagged, yeah, yeah. We have a special guest in our audience, Melissa, who's going to come up and from Select Path. She's going to thank you. She's on our executive, and thank you so much for doing that, Melissa.
Thank you, candidates, and thank you, all for coming out this morning to hear from all the candidates. And also thank you to the great staff here at the Best Western Lamplighter and Conference Center. I know we all love a good event here. And of course to our sponsors, Labatt and Swan Public Affairs, for helping to make this event happen. My name's Melissa Maloney. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Select Path Benefits and Financial, and I'm also a member of the Board of Directors here at the Chamber of Commerce. As a business advocacy organization, I am thrilled that the Chamber was able to offer the event today to help give our business community a better understanding and the priorities of each of our candidates here today. We also did receive some questions that were very specific to the Chamber of Commerce, and we didn't ask those of the candidates. If you want to stick around afterwards, one of the Chamber reps, any of us can talk to you about those questions as well. So this does conclude the formal portion of our candidates forum. However, if you'd like to stay behind for a few minutes and network or speak with any of the candidates, we welcome you to do so. There might be a lineup, so you might need to be a little patient. But we do thank you, and we look forward to seeing you at other Chamber events. Have a great day.
For one more second. Just one more second, please. There's another, some other folks that deserve some thanks here. Sorry, folks, could I just have your attention, please? I'm sorry. I have to thank the staff, my staff. And we decided to do this not so long ago. The Chamber of Commerce has never done candidate events like this in the past, but we pulled these together. We did 3 in a row. Kirsten, who's our policy VP. Kim, who does communications for us. Our timer, Andrew, who is a policy analyst. And at the back, there's Julia, who is our events manager, director. Have I missed anybody in the room? Thank God, no. All right. Anyway, I couldn't, because it was incredible work, folks. Thank you so much. 3 in a row, 3 mornings in a row. All right, thanks.